We'll call this meeting to order, the first meeting for January. And I know there are several people that are not part of the committee, so if you can all please introduce yourselves, starting with you, ma'am.
Me, Vanessa Guerra, I'm with City Planning.
Victor Linares, Acting Building Director.
Roland Lozano with Building Development Services.
Arturo Martinez.
Mr. Councilman?
Yeah,
welcome.
Thanks for showing interest. Well, thanks for inviting me. I got a phone call from John inviting me out here, and I said, sure, I'll go. And then Julian, of course, called me.
Well, thanks for showing interest.
Thanks for having me. I'm gonna sit here and just listen, because that's what I
No, you
want to do.
can interject. We'd love to have your input, absolutely. Roll call.
Yes,
Martin?
Mr. Chairman. Fred Dickey,
Here.
Mayra Hernandez,
Present.
Rodney Rodriguez,
Present.
John Villarreal,
Present.
Arturo Dominguez. Here. And for District 5, and Ms. Ramirez.
Yes.
I know that I've been working with LSC Secretary in reference to your absence. We have you with 3 absences already.
Okay.
And after 3 absences, you're automatically out of committee and we need to get somebody in replacement. So that would be, that we were already working this past week on a letter so that we can get out. And the same thing goes with District 6, which was from Councilman San Miguel as well. Those 2, which was Silvia Parcell. So I mean, just to let you know, I know we.
So this is the last meeting I can attend?
Well, basically, as of the last meeting that
Well, I think
we
it's
had.
Nelly Vima was the one that appointed you, right?
Yes.
Now, she can, well, I'll find out, what I'm trying to find out too, if anything, if she can reappoint you. But based on the 3 absences, I want to let you that know. We're going to send out letters letting you know that you had 3 absences already.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to inform you so we can be working on that.
Okay.
And we don't have one for Councilman San Miguel. The next one that I have is Julian Brodonsky.
Here.
And Joe Maldonado. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Good. Now, Mr. Aleman, so there's a new calendar year, so everybody now has 3, can get 3 absences for
3
the next
absences.
calendar year.
Yeah, so as a reminder.
Whether we're sick, whether excused, unexcused, they allow us to have 3.
We used to be able to do excuses, but that's no longer allowed. So if many of you members are out 3 times, it's automatically out of the committee. So.
And it doesn't necessarily, the council person can reappoint you.
Based on what, and I'm gonna double check that. I'm gonna ask, I need to check. That's for the ordinance.
That's by our ordinance, by law.
Just by FYI, because all of a sudden I'm thrown into the thrust. I've been reading up on the ordinance and of course on the charter. If you miss 3, therefore, that is an automatic, you're out.
Right.
So,
The third absence.
in essence, this meeting
I
here.
should not be here.
Well, you could be here as a
Yeah, but I-
spectator, but
yes.
not a voting member.
Okay.
For instance, I'm not a voting member here, so I mean, I can come as a spectator. Alex,
You can cheer.
I'm District 3, and District 3's appointment was John Villarreal, and so just to let you all know that I'm gonna reappoint John Villarreal to the committee. So, he hasn't missed, has he?
We have, this is like a new, you go back to 0. You know what I mean?
okay.
So the way I interpreted the
It
ordinance,
starts from.
it's calendar year.
As long as it's not 3 in the calendar year.
Right.
The
That's
calendar
right.
year, correct.
Okay.
And last time we did set the dates.
Yes.
And so, but of course, this is a public meeting, so, thank you all for coming in. Do y'all want to introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. My name is Karen Gaitan. I'm a young, concerned Laredoan and who is interested in advocating for initiatives to come to our city.
Awesome, awesome. Good.
Welcome.
Yeah, and I'm Regina Portillo. I work for a local nonprofit.
You're my neighbor.
Yes, more importantly. And I work for City Makery, a local nonprofit that helps citizens get organized and ask for things in their city.
Great.
Awesome. Well, good. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, good. So we got the roll call minutes. I don't know if we had minutes from the last time.
I emailed them. What I did fail to do is bring myself a copy of them, but I did email them out. If you all review them, so that you can, somebody could make them all correction, or, yeah, we can put them on. And look at them and review them. If anybody has any
Okay,
changes or
so should
corrections,
we go on to the
then we can
next
approve them.
agenda item, and then until she brings the
Yes,
minutes,
she'll
and we
bring.
can go back to it?
Okay.
Very good. First one is discussion and possible action on NEZ policies and guidelines to be presented by Julian Rupnowski.
So what I passed along to you guys is the finalized draft that we would be approving, and what I'm going to be doing at this point is, so let me get into it, is giving a presentation regarding the
Now,
mines.
Councilman Martinez, the NEZ was one of your, it's in your district.
That's
The
correct.
whole district.
So this would be an update to the NEZs. This wouldn't be a whole new ordinance or something separate, but just a revamping and injection into what is currently existing.
Wait. State-of-the-art facility.
I know, Councilman Martinez, one of the things you wanted to look at is the zoning around the Old Mercy Hospital and see how we could improve that. I know that's a big.
It is my belief that, and everybody, while we're waiting for that.
Yeah.
Well, everybody is talking about the Old Mercy Hospital and about the building, and we gotta do something. I'm a realtor by trade. I am licensed to sell real estate. So if I bring an investor to buy the building, hey, great, I can do something with this building, there's a lot of potential, there's a lot of everything, and I'll go tour the building, and as soon as I'm coming out of that front door, I look at across the street, and I'll look at the building, yeah, the building's a nice one, but so is across the street, so is the neighborhood around the area. So what I would like to accomplish is to revamp that whole neighborhood, make it a neighborhood that is functional, not only for business, but for the residents that live around there. If it means, and I'm glad planning is here, rezoning the area for multi-use so that we can bring in the restaurants, so we can bring in the boutiques, the little mom and pop shops, etc. If we can make it attractive outside of the building, then it's going to be so much easier to attract an investor to come and do something with that building. And I think everybody will be happy all the way around, the residents around there and business owners, which of course means revamping all of Corpus Christi. All that area used to be thriving at one time, and now you go by there and it's kind of falling apart. So I have talked to AEP to see what it would cost to remove some of those power lines and maybe go underground, maybe redoing the street to where it's aesthetically, it's more appealing to the eye. Of course, we've got, biking trails and all of that stuff, but yeah, we can make it to where we can revamp that whole community, then I think we'll be much better off. Property values will go up, and it'll be so much better for the city.
Is that area currently in the NEZ? Those?
Yes, it is.
Yes,
Okay,
it is.
good.
All his district is in the NEZ.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And just on the city side, just Roland Lozano again, I'm the one that handles the NEZs. The water and sewer infrastructure was for residential, so therefore commercial is less of an impact, so on that part, the city wouldn't have to like revamp anything. Obviously residential it uses more water and sewer, so it's already, the infrastructure's already there, so that could, I don't know about the electrical, right, but as far as the city, the water and sewer it was made for residential. And they have an elevated tank right there next to the Mercy Hospital anyway, so or the old Mercy Hospital, so.
Plus, there's been a revamp on a lot of the piping all around that area as well.
Right.
The water, the sewer has been made
Line
new.
replacement.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
The line
yeah,
replacement,
okay.
yes, but like Lorian's saying, I mean, a lot of the lines are more residential, except for the side of the area next to the.
Yeah, the more water connections you put into a water line, it just lowers
Diminishes the
the,
pressure.
you know, the pressure and so.
There's a water tank right there on
Yeah.
campus.
But what I said is, I mean, it usually in general speaking, commercial, unless there are restaurants that have a big restaurant, it's usually just less of an impact to the water and sewer. So if that's the area that you're wanting to go.
So is there a mix of the zoning, the commercial, residential in that area, correct?
On the
By
zoning,
nature, but not by zoning. They're all-
Not by zoning?
If it does exist, it's a variance. And you'll hear some people a lot of times
Yeah, we
say,
need to
well, we
pull
can do
up-
a variance to do that, but uncertainty kills projects like
Yes.
that. You know, if I have to go to the city and say, you know, I have a request to make versus this is the zoning I need,
Right.
you're having two different conversations. So
Which
that's
is
why that's
why I
important.
posed the question, because if your vision is to attract or to make that more attractive, then we need to make sure that we solidify what type of zone it is.
and now, like, let's say it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Vanessa, since you're in plan, but if you're in R3, you're like residential, high density, right? But you could put it into maybe a B1 or B2, which you could also use residential in that.
Commercial.
Right.
Yeah.
But now
Allows
include
both types
commercial.
of uses.
Yeah.
And the only thing that limits the type of use in it, like a B1, is the performance standards, parking requirements, separation distances, those sorts of things. That you can have commercial and residential uses on the same lot, but those are the sorts of things that might limit, you know, the type of use that you have on a lot. Even though the use is allowed, you can't meet parking, separation
So
distances,
that's
all the rest
the
of it.
biggest problem. She just hit it right on the head. It's suddenly, yes, the high density lot, but it's not high density because you have setbacks, high parking requirements. So it's, even though it's possible, it's not in real life possible.
It's difficult with a smaller lot to have multiple types of uses.
Okay.
So, I think we actually have an item to
Especially if
discuss
they're
all that.
separated. If you build upwards, it would be easier, you know?
So, yeah. So I just want,
So I'll dive into this, so the title of the policy is Laredo Inner City Housing Incentive Policy, because it's going to be including all current neighborhood empowerment zones in the city of Laredo. Going to what you said, Councilman Martinez, it is very important that codes like that exist in order to continuously implement a policy like this, so that we can actually build them. So diving in, I pulled a question straight out of the Laredo Comprehensive Plan, which is, what would you consider to be the biggest opportunities for housing in Laredo? These were the top 3 responses. So going back to what the councilman said, mixed use was one of the top requests, that being commercial downstairs, residents living upstairs. Another thing was downtown redevelopment through new housing options, and the third was creating new communities with parks, public transport, and homes, which, you know, fit perfectly well within the inner city and can really be efficient as a service when you're looking at the inner city to provide these types of services because of the density.
Jimmy and I was I went to San Antonio, took my family, went by the Pearl area, and that's perfect. You've got the mixed use of residential and commercial.
Exactly. So that's good planning right there. So the reason why those were the top 3 responses is we have to look at who is the upcoming demographic when it comes to our city and, quite frankly, the whole United States, because we do get people that come into our city looking for jobs and opportunities. And millennials are right up there. They are the largest generation in American history currently. So that is who we're targeting. That's who's demanding this, and that's who we're trying to bring here, 1, and 2, I've heard this term used a lot, brain drain, keep here, because obviously we do have a lot of families here. And it's a major problem. So what do we do to market to those people? And what they want is they want to be able to live, work, and play in the cities that they live in, and be able to live in a dense, affordable area. So that's 2016. What I want to point out is, as a city, when we implement policies, we're not implementing policies for 2019, we're implementing policies that go beyond that. And by 2025, that is going to be the largest demographic that is going to be spending money in politics, everything. It's going to be the millennials. So what are we doing to, once again, keep those people here 10 years from now and attract them to our city? Because the more people we attract here, the greater economic development we create. That's new jobs, new opportunities, a lot more educated people. They want to be able to bike around, they want to be able to walk around. We need to implement policies that plan towards the short future. This is 6 years from now, believe it or not. So it's coming around very, very fast. And when you look at other cities and wonder where are they currently living when it comes to cities that have already been brought back, 67% of them live in urban environments. That is a huge percentage compared to other generations. So looking at current trends, you can see that that is predominantly the category to hit. If you look at, so these are young Americans, this is not millennials or any, this is people between the ages of 24 and 34. And not to overwhelm you, but everything in the green is population growth in 2000, everything in the blue is population growth 10 years later, 2010. And what you can see is everything within 10 miles has gone up from 300% population growth all the way to, that looks like 1,000-something%, all within a 10-mile radius of the inner city. So you're seeing a trend throughout the United States where people are moving back into these cities. And it's really, and that includes people moving into cities also, so that plays into that same concept. If you look at everything pretty much outside of 10 miles, you can see the drop-off that's happening. These people are leaving these suburban areas and coming into the city. So we need to be able to, one, plan for the future, which we will be hitting those scales, and two, making sure that we don't lose people because we don't have the housing stock to meet those demands.
Julian, can you explain the first tier of, that has to do with cost?
So back in 2000s, that was around the time that we actually had the cores of downtowns started to boom. The cost of living in those areas and the type of demographic that typically lives in the core of downtowns is typically very young and not having kids, believe it or not. So what you really see a lot in the deep core of urban areas is what you'll see is they want to have families and move a little further out because it's not affordable, keyword, affordable, to stay there and have families. So that's why you see a little blip downwards on that one, but still an increase, nevertheless. That is the only difference. But you look after a mile, you can see, especially when you get to the 3 to 10 mile range, a huge explosion. Versus when 3 to 10 miles back in 2000, there was a decrease in population. So that tells you a lot about why not just downtowns are important, but inner cities are very important. You have a question?
How are we in comparison to that here in Laredo?
The growth, our city currently has, we're currently working with What Works Cities. The question to be had, because this information comes from cities, I'm not sure if our city, and maybe, I'm not sure if we have anyone here that represents, I guess, someone that would be collecting this data, but our city should be collecting this data to see the trends. But this is not just one city. This is trends all over the United States.
But are we trending with everybody?
We don't have the housing stock.
We don't have the housing stock. That's the key differentiator.
The thing is, what can we do?
So leading into that, so what we can do is try to bring back these areas, and I'm just going to finish the whole demographics. So these are the highest concentration of millennials by cities and neighborhoods. These are the top, and over 95% of the top concentrations, if you look there, are all within the downtown. There are a couple that are neighborhoods those neighborhoods, and I was just really curious why those outlied from the downtown. Those neighborhoods are 7 miles away from the downtown. So that speaks about that real huge boom in that 3 to 10 mile range, which is inner cities. So those are actually all considered inner city.
And I think you have their Astrodome, the neighborhood, but you also have the rail, right, that goes from the Astrodome area to the.
And when they
What I'm trying to say is that you've got, it might be a little bit further away, but you've got public transportation.
They built that in order to stimulate growth along the rail, because if people had an efficient, easy way to get to areas, then they would live around it. So that rail was very successful in developing those areas. And that wasn't, they didn't put the rail because suddenly there was the demographic and all the people there. They put it to stimulate. So it's a good form, it's a good example of economic development that a city took place, where they put money, now in order to see an investment come back in the future, which was highly successful, as you can see here. So what I'm targeting, and what I believe we're really truly trying to target, is not just quality housing, but affordable quality housing. We have, I'm sure you can go out there and find really cheap places to rent, but you look at them and they're cardboard boxes. They're not something you want to raise a family in. So it's not just affordable, but it needs to be, quality housing. And there's a huge demand with student housing, and I'm hoping to work closely with Laredo College on really trying to satisfy that need in the short-term future and in the long-term future, because it sounds like you guys keep growing. One of the current environments is just cost of construction is going up. It's as simple as tariffs, or as complex as tariffs, where it's more political, and it is also just the general cost of labor. It's all been just gradually going up. There's other costs which are policy. Examples being suddenly the fire department requiring more type of equipment in buildings. That affects the final, bottom line of what a developer needs to invest in and what he needs to return.
Or no land to develop.
Or no land to develop. All those are huge factors in building affordable and quality housing. It affects it drastically. So the solution is as simple as to incentivize not just the growth, but incentivize smart growth. And what I mean by that is not all urban patterns contribute equally to the cost of services. What I'm referring to there is a building in the center of our city versus building a building 50 miles away. What that building 50 miles away really means is what you're doing is, first of all, it contributes a lot less to the general fund when it comes to the tax revenue being brought in, but that one building you've now built that far away, now you need to make sure that there's fire and police that can hit there. I think they have a certain amount of time that they need to reach certain areas. So if they don't hit that, what that basically means is you're having to build more services for that small little, really sprawled out development. And that's not good when you look at what that type of sprawl. This is just a general example of a normal city. This is not a study of our city. But you can see right there, 11,000 an acre versus downtown where you have mixed use, $413,000 an acre. That's tax revenue. And the services, going into services, here's another example, I'm sorry. This is showing the blue is outside central business districts, the yellow is within the districts, and you can just see the tax revenue that these properties generate. Walmart's, you would assume that would generate a lot more, but than a 6-story mixed use, but that's just not true, because our entire city is based on property tax revenue, simply that. So making sure that our developments are more dense is extremely important to the tax base alone. But when we're talking about incentivizing developments, what we're really looking at is, we're not necessarily throwing money away, because the truth is we already are incentivizing developments by just hoping that people build more and more far out. This is the average cost of services between an urban area and a suburban area, and this considers police, bus transport, fire, any soft cost, that maintenance. It's 2.5 times more costly to service a suburban neighborhood than an urban neighborhood. So today, by not taking on a policy that incentivizes smart growth in our inner city, what we truly are is we're subsidizing all these developments that keep sprawling and sprawling because we're having to maintain more roads, more pipes, more service stations, more fire, more police. So it's not necessarily, to me, it doesn't really seem like we're throwing money away. If anything, we're using it in a lot smarter of a way where we can plan towards the future of our city and the cost of our city because it keeps going up. I just found out that our city bonds to maintain roads. That is a huge problem. That is not normal. And the reason behind that is because we keep allowing sprawl to continue versus taking advantage of the current infrastructure we already have laid, especially in our inner cities. So this is what the policy is going to be targeting. It's going to promote density. That's between medium and high density neighborhoods in the neighborhood empowerment zone. It's going to be so any historic buildings obviously have to go through the historic design review. Anything outside of that realm, as long as it checks off the boxes, and if you actually turn to the document that I gave you, there is a breakdown on the, let's see, it's a 4th page, which is the scoring matrix. And the way that scoring matrix works is there's you can hit a 1 category, that being, let's give an example as student housing, or 2 categories being a historic building into student housing. And dependent if it's just 1 category, you hit 1 part of the column. If it's 2 categories, you hit the 2nd part of the column. Now, right now, the way it's shown, and this can be updated once we have talks with council, but right now the way it shows is it's a 5-year loan calculated with a 2% interest rate. That's for anything within the downtown TERS, and that would be a forgivable loan. Anything outside of the downtown TERS in a general neighborhood empowerment zone would be a 5% loan at 2% interest, but it wouldn't currently be forgivable.
I guess that part right there is where we still don't know where the funding source for the loans would be.
So as a committee, what we would be doing is giving this as a suggestion. And then after that fact, then we will be working with council to find out how we can get these funds together in order to put this together. So hopefully down the line after this is approved by our committee, we can start working with city council on justifying how we can get those funds. Aside from the development loan, there's this bonus loan that refers to if it includes parking as part of the thing. So obviously, especially on the student housing, you're not going to need that many cars for those type of projects. So maybe you just wouldn't need that, therefore you wouldn't be getting that. But if they decide to build structured parking or go out and buy land for parking, then there would be a bonus per unit of $1,500.
Let me ask you a question. I don't know if you know this, but could it be some sort of like a tax credit? Like I know sometimes like for public housing, they issue tax credits and.
Those are federal.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if we could get something like that.
So it would be great if, once we have this, is we try to include that. That's just something else we can bond to this.
Because an investor could get 2%, but on a tax equivalent basis, it could be, you know, a much more, a rate that'd be very comparable to maybe current market rates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know if that could be done. It's just a suggestion.
So the other thing, if you look at the scoring matrix, you'll see the property tax abatements. Currently, the neighborhood empowerment zone has a 10-year. What I'm asking is anything within the TERS. So we would have to meet with the TERS, or the city would have to talk with the TERS board. But the TERS work with the city and possibly bridge that gap and cover the next 5 years, so a total of 15 years.
And the TERS right now is a downtown TERS, right?
Yes, the downtown TERS, the tax increment reinvestment zone.
Which the boundaries are what, San Bernardo, or what are the boundaries for the downtown TERS?
Santa Ursula, west all the way to, I think, Santa Isabel, goes on LCC, comes back up all the way to Scott, I believe, and then it's south all the way to
water.
Okay. So all that area.
Y'all don't want to go over to Benavides? I'd like to visit.
So that's the square area,
Yeah.
basically all in downtown.
And then there's also, what we also have is, once again, this would have to be working with the city, and we can tweak all these things once we have conversations with the city, but a waiver of fees for the Laredo Utilities Department, and city fee waivers, that being any permits or rezoning requirements or anything that would be part of the project, any fees attached to the whole thing.
So now, but right now, we do have waiver of fees. We do have.
Yeah, so some things that are part of the scoring matrix, that being the city fee waivers, are already existing. The things that don't currently exist in the NEZ is up to 15 years. Right now, we only have 10 years. Up to 15 years, and the development loan and the development loan bonus. Those are the only.
Not all waivers. There's all the.
Yeah,
there's some that are
There's
still
some
up.
that are.
Some that, especially in the inner city, like in the historic district, and in buildings that are historic, that don't have parking, which is most of the buildings, it is required by the city to purchase anybody who has a permit, and if they're working there, even, they can't put quarters in the meter. They have to buy the meter every day. So that's a big cost after a while.
Yeah, especially
That's just
if
one of
development
them.
takes a
There's
long
others.
time.
There's others, but that's one of them.
At the end of the day, what we'd have to do is an analysis of the total of what really those fees equate to when it comes to a project.
Because right now, Roland, do you know which fees are included, are waived right now? I know like the building.
Permit fees, zoning, if they go to zoning,
Plumbing,
Uh,
inspections.
yeah, all the permit
Yeah,
fees,
pretty
which
much
is
all
your
the building
building,
permit fees.
electrical, plumbing, mechanical, all those fees are waived.
So like this Laredo Utilities Department water and sewer impact fees are not then?
Right, well, keep in mind,
Utilities
there's
and
things
enterprise
like
funds and because
water
it has
availability fees and
bonds.
stuff like that, those are more of a planning thing that may or may not have been paid or something like that. There's, utilities has an exact what lot paid for what, so you don't know that could be an impact, and that's not waived under the current ordinance.
The solution to that is not necessarily to get them to waive the fee, but if we can develop a fund for this, obviously the funds would cover all those things.
It ultimately boils down to general fund, because like I was mentioning, utilities is an enterprise fund. It has issued revenue bonds, so we're, the state, the ones of people that bought the bond, we have a responsibility. So basically, when it comes to utilities, very restricted to what they can give away, because basically it's the revenue. It's a self-sustaining mechanism like a private business, and it has a totally different requirements. I know that what would happen is, like I mentioned, general fund would have to have that special funding, pay utilities for whatever services would be granted to any particular.
But the city does receive funding. In other words, they have a budget of X and whatever.
For what?
Over that, utilities. That enterprise fund,
Uh-huh.
it's, in other words, they have a budget for X for the year, and whatever they make in that enterprise fund over that budget goes into the general fund,
No,
doesn't
it doesn't.
it? It stays there?
It stays there.
accumulates.
Mhm. And it's like right now, I mean, we've made a presentation
That's
that
not what
we,
they told
that we need to redo the structures, because one of the projects, an example, is a Manadas wastewater plant that they're debating. If we want to build that, we need to increase the rate. We don't have enough money to do that $40 to $50 million project. So we need to look at that.
And so those developers they can't move, because, there's certain places.
There's not enough capacity.
Same thing on south of 359, west of Cuatro Vientos, there's no sewer. That's why it doesn't develop that way.
The issue is infrastructure.
You need another sewer plant to recuperate all that, and I'm just saying.
That's why it costs more money. That's why it's raising everybody's
Right, no,
rates.
I'm not
That's why. That's why
I'm
this is
agreeing with that,
good.
but how? I mean, what I'm saying.
Well, we have to get creative, that's what we have to do.
There you go.
And we can't depend on the federal or the state to give us money, we have to be
And
creative our
especially
own.
when
and the way that the.
I mean, I was even thinking like, me, I work for a bank, I mean, there might be a program, I mean, that we might, it's for
CRAs.
the CRA, for the banks, or, that could be something, but I don't know, I mean, if we could, we got it for the funding, it might be difficult to go to the city and say, you know, and it might not, you know, here's a fund, you know, that will be for this, whether that's, you know,
You're hitting on something because these are run by the Economic Development Corporation, West Side, or one of those economic development corporations in San Antonio. And those development corporations run separately. It's like not,
and
the
that's what we
program
need to
is
look
run,
at.
is run by that corporation, and that corporation is allowed to go and solicit fundings from all sorts of places that the city would not have those advantages.
Right, and see, and that's where I think we need to go, is to determine where they get their funding sources, because I know banks, I mean, like, I know like Compass, they needed a lot of CRA, they had,
And they won't write a check to the city, but they'll write a check to an economic
Right.
development corporation.
you know, so maybe we can look at for the private sector, you know, because I know, unless Martin allows us, right, he's got the money, but, you know, I mean, you know, we need to see how we can get these
We
funds
just
and
need to do it.
roll up our sleeves.
And at the end of the day, it will come from a couple different. I can only give, because that's the only one I've dove
Well, let's
into, is
look
San
into
Antonio.
that.
San Antonio gets it from
Why don't we get
TERS,
that,
general
let's
funds.
look at that, Julian, I mean, if anybody wants to help from the committee, how we can do that. I know, talked to Rodney, we looked at the St. Peter's area as to how to provide funding, I mean, how to provide the housing for LC, so.
So just to sum all this up, I've been just talking about why it's important, you know, and I love how we start talking about how we need to generate more funds for more sewer. And that's an example of what happens if we keep allowing our city to sprawl versus trying to focus on once again, not to use a buzzword, but smart growth, making sure that we are not overextending ourselves due to services. Because it's always easy to look at what does it cost today, but it's more importantly to understand what it costs tomorrow, because those are the situations we end up with. So that's why, even though this is a cost today, it really could truly mean a drastically different thing 5-10 years from now.
It's in the comp plan.
And this is in the comp plan. That's yes, to curb all that and to start.
I mean, these tax incentives work, Councilman. One of the things you've seen, there's areas there in your district where you had somebody that they got these incentives, so they improved a home, and all of a sudden the neighbor starts improving, so it starts snowballing, you know. If not, so what happens if you don't give it a shot in the arm with these incentives? What happens to the tax base? Starts going lower and lower, blighted areas, so.
You get hit twice.
You start incentivizing, and then it becomes, instead of it going down, you start incentivizing and you start getting nicer homes, and people want to live there, people want to invest there.
So to answer the short term though, I'll just cover the slide really quickly. These are the categories that it would be targeting: mixed income, community use, adaptive reuse, brownfield redevelopment, historic rehabilitation, mid-rise residential development, and student housing. All of these are defined in the documents that I passed to you. The definitions of each of these will be there. But to talk about the short term, because you know sometimes we're just concerned about what happens in the short term. So San Antonio implemented a very, very similar policy. I used the bones of their policy in order to build the Laredo's intercity policy. They, to this date, have given out, and I'm not suggesting this for us, I'm just using this as a case study, $102 million in tax and fee waiver incentives. That $102 million created $1.4 billion in private investment in property downtown and the inner city of San Antonio and the surrounding neighborhoods. That is a 14 times amount compared to that investment that was put in. Created 8,000 jobs and contributed nearly $1.1 billion in gross domestic product to the city. And what that number is referring to, this was a study done by St. Mary's. What that $1.1 billion is really referring to is it's not just the services now to maintain the new buildings. We're talking about the coffee shops that go in there. We're talking about Hulu moving into the downtown of San Antonio. There are environmental impacts that happen that bring in new commerce because of the fact, to tie it all back together, is the demographic that we're looking at wants to be in these areas. The companies that hire need to make sure that the places they move into have the quality of life structures required for these people, because then they're not going to want to live there. I heard recently that the city was going after an employee for one of the positions, and he's gone. I hear so many times amongst businesses where they lose all these young people to San Antonio because San Antonio is eating our cake. And
I cannot hire a licensed funeral director from anywhere else in the country, starting at $55,000 a year. It's pretty good, that's what teachers get paid for my business, because, well, there's nothing to do and what's going on.
there's no amount of money that will attract us.
I cannot, and I willingly pay it.
Mhm.
And I have a gentleman that's about to start and think about retiring, so
There is socio-economic impacts that happen when our product, because our city's a product. It's not, we have to start viewing it that way. It needs to be desirable, it needs to be wanted by our local citizens and by other people living all around the United States. So there are multiple impacts, and that's what that $1.1 billion domestic product, that's what that is. So lastly, it spurred a development of 6,500 units in the downtown. So not to praise them, but they're getting WeWork to move there, they got Hulu, they're getting these, I'm so excited that LC now has cyber tech, because that is the future right there. But San Antonio's getting that, they're getting a lot of things, and believe it or not, it's easy to say, oh, it's because it's nice, but it's the quality of life. So there are many different returns that happen when we create an incentive policy that generates not just the housing stock, but the quality of life that not just our citizens, like you can see from our Viva Laredo plan, because that's the comprehensive plan, that's directly from our citizens, but from the rest of the United States and the trends that are happening, as you saw in the demographics and the vast shift that's happening. So that's why this is so important, and why it easily pays for itself, and why we really need to consider how to put together the funds to incentivize this type of smart growth in the city of Laredo.
we're going to be relics. A lot of us
Very
are
good,
going to be
Julie.
relics.
Excellent.
Don't point at me. How are you?
So I guess right now, with I don't know how much we've given here in Laredo with the NEZs as far as tax incentives. I don't know if we keep that number.
Downtown?
Yeah, well, both District 8 and
How much is
Heights
it?
District.
I don't have the numbers of,
But we do have a master look at it.
yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, it's growing. The more it's out there, it's growing. Obviously, we get a lot of residential houses that it's really bad, they want to redo it and it qualifies. Residentials are only five years on the tax abatement. The commercial is 10 years, but the threshold of that is $280,000. Typically, there's some, but the more that it's out there, and it's not everywhere, but the more that it's out there, they hear about it.
How do they hear about it? How do you market the program?
Well, currently, every time they come in for a permit, that's one of the things we check. We let them know, first of all, they're gonna come in for a permit. Hey, by the way, you're in the NZ, do you wanna apply? So it's already a given. Also, contractors know, hey, you're in this zone, they already know to ask, because it could impact the way they do, because obviously the permit fees are waived, so that's something of an incentive for,
So if I don't come to you, I will never know.
well, but are you
That's
gonna
an
rehabilitate
opportunity.
without a permit? You have to come.
Well, no.
You can't do anything here without a
Well,
permit.
yes, but if.
No, I know what
Well,
you're
you're
saying.
interested.
But if you're interested, but you don't know that the
Right.
program exists as an
No, I believe
I
Hector is.
never go, because I don't even know that the
Yeah,
program
I know
exists.
one goal, and I think I know where you're going at. One comment that we had before, because the NEZ, we do promote it to our customers. One of the things we've have preliminary talks with, I always forget the name of the group. Pretty much the group that helps with the set off with advertising. And pretty much trying to make the NEZ not just a common incentive that's promoted, within ourselves, but more of an advertisement format, to allow people or investors, or people who would know is like, okay, so we're trying to do like some either public service announcements. So that's like a common thing that we can do, and we've done it before. But I'm talking more with, like a video, on our website. We're really starting to really upgrade our website. We're trying to do trainings on different components, but one item would be like the NEZ. That for sure
We're also doing some kind of a pamphlet, but it's not just a building.
And the reason why I asked is that we're going to go back to the millennials and Gen X, at least the Gen X close to the millennial era. They're not going to use a tablet.
You need social media.
They're not going to use websites.
And it isn't the
And just
website.
letting you know
I
what
agree with you
research states. It's
that
not-
this should be not just promoted in Laredo, it should be promoted everywhere. It should be
Everywhere,
promoted
because it's like
easily
with the-
at
if
bare
you
minimum,
research.
400 miles in every direction.
All the city departments
Every
work
direction.
with each other, right? So I'm assuming at least all departments have to talk to each other at some point in time, right? Again, I'm thinking, wouldn't it make sense as a committee that the NAZ should be promoted with what is it, the LBV or the
LBV.
LBV? I mean, they're the ones marketing the city, aren't they? Who's marketing the
Oh,
city?
the Visitors Bureau, I'm
The
sorry.
Convention and Visitors Bureau?
Yes, it should,
There you go. I'm changing
it should be an economic marketing package. that's pushed.
I know one group that we've met.
And it doesn't fall on, obviously on you all, because you all
Yeah.
have to do the daily operations.
Well, you have the
Somebody's marketing
Economic
the city.
Development Corporation as
Yeah.
well.
We've had
Economic
a brief
development or-
meeting with,
I don't know, I'm
Main
just-
Street,
Yeah.
with Laredo Main Street, with Laredo Main Street, and so we had this preliminary talk of pretty much trying to, when we got feedback from them, that pretty much, that we're trying to work a packet, and that's kind of the initiative part that we're trying to do. We're trying to work on a packet with pamphlets, videos, this and that and the other, that like with Laredo Main Street, that's like one group, where we're able to share that information and create that link, because pretty much once we learn from their group what they do, it's like pretty much the investments that come in for downtown, like they get to talk to them, oh, okay, great, now can you help us, like that would be like a help, an extending hand to help us, promote that NEZ program.
If I can
And so-
chime in, the current packet,
Mhm.
I know the incentives because I've seen the ordinance when it got implemented, but the current packet doesn't even, it's not easy, it talks very just kind of broadly. It doesn't say 5 years for residential, 10 years for commercial, it doesn't currently say that.
But we're training the other personnel to explain to them the basic points and to contact us for more detailed questions or email
It
us.
should, I'm gonna speak as a broker. A lot of the time when I go on and I see call for price, the first thing I'm gonna call is the stuff that has the information. It should be broken down and simplified, because any form of uncertainty is never good when you're trying to market something like this. That's incredibly important. Do we speak to EDC on this? Do they have this package? Laredo,
Economic Development Corporation.
yeah, because they actually go, so they do this. If they had this package, they would be marketing this when they go meet with all these investors.
If, I guess one suggestion that I would ask, just help from your committee, if you could provide us maybe some contact information, so I guess you're throwing acronyms to me and I'm not familiar
Sorry.
with
Yeah,
them,
Economic Development
and so it's kind of hard, like,
Corporation.
if, the only group that, I guess that and actually, because I met her at City Council, was the Laredo Main Street, so that was kind of, we approached them and so we had that friendly conversation, so that's why we had that initial conversation with them, but if there's other, mediums that we can
The
use.
LDF, which is
you know.
now the Laredo.
Economic Development Corporation.
Correct, like, we can try to.
So we
make
can do
contact with them.
presentations, we can
My
advise them.
suggestion is that you take your GIS department person and have them put a GIS map together of all the permits that have done, all the construction that's been
We've
done.
We would have that.
Is it online?
No, it's not like.
No, but on our records, we have that. yeah.
So put it online, that's a great map that shows, and it's great data for you guys.
Yeah,
'cause
and
I brought
the
the
reason I was
representative
thinking.
to the economic, remember?
Great
Yeah,
data.
the reason I brought the Laredo Main Street, because once we spoke with that group, we're getting like similar feedback that you're saying. And so we're trying to really create this, I know brochure seems really simple, but from our end, we're just trying to create something that's an advertisement format, not too much getting all the neat and gritty details.
But believe it or not, that's
The one,
the 70% that are gonna look at that are gonna be looking for
yeah,
those nitty-gritty
but the
details.
thing is, I would wish to promote it more for the investor, not, because what happens also, what we see from the other part, and just to add to the topic with the NEZ, when we promote the NEZ, a lot of the people, they waive it. They wish not to get for it. One of the things that I've noticed, we've literally.
By the time they go for the building permit, they're already ready to start.
Correct, yeah.
They don't wanna wait.
That too, but like the little discouraging part, well, I'll give you like 2 or 3 pointers. I've had staff, like I will hear him speaking to the customer, and then the customer, oh no, and then I'll jump in, it's like, no ma'am, and then I'll do like a triangle, it's like a little graph chart, ma'am, if you do this and get into WebCat, this is what you're gonna, and explain the whole concept. Oh, no, it's because, they have you explain the process, even though the little detail that a lot of people complain is like, oh, we have to introduce it to the city council meeting, which, because it's just the process. And then the most common, city managers lets us even put that item in pretty quick, because it's something minor, that if we get it like in a 1-2 week window, like we're able to put it in the agenda, and so as soon as it gets approved, but sometimes that 1 or 2 week window is like, no, that's too much, I don't want to wait.
It's the application fee also, it's $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, no, the other one is, the main one, I think, is one of the 5 taxes. We're not talking school taxes, we're not talking anything.
It's
two.
Yeah, it's
The county, I don't think
we
it
also
has
advise
it.
them about
Yes,
that, yeah.
it does.
Yeah, it includes county.
Correct.
Yes, we just got it.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we give that feedback,
But
they kind of get,
we're
they
only
hear
talking about
taxes, they
city
hear
tax.
council, and there's like,
That's our
oh,
process.
believe it or not, we even get comments like, oh no, they're
But it should be.
gonna get me later, yeah.
I think we
It's
need
like,
to
no, no.
move on. So,
Yeah.
as far as the NSC policies and guidelines, there's one, I guess there's several in here as far as the abatement, maybe extending it to 15 years, trying to find some of these funding sources. So I don't know if we want to take any possible action
We should, I don't know, they've got the.
or try and get maybe more information from from San Antonio.
My request is that we approve this and send it out of our committee so that we can then start working with the city on then working on crediting the funding source
Okay.
or seeing what they like to tweak. But
Okay.
I think that was my goal in doing this.
So do you want to make
Yes, this has to go to council.
Do you want to make a motion to that
I'll make
extent?
a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
What we've been talking about.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Very good.
For clarity's sake, you were asking about approving this and sending it to council, correct? Approving the iChip?
Well, we need to, we're approving it, but we need to look at the funding source right now.
The council needs to
Yeah.
figure out. Right.
Okay, the actual funding
So
source.
it's yes
But-
when we forward to present it at city council?
That's what they're trying to.
But I think we also need to know, I think we need more clarity on the funding source, because to me, I think that's gonna be the big part of, okay, well,
But I think the city,
That's
we can
I don't think
assist.
it's our responsibility. What you're saying is
Yeah.
that the city council research to get that information to include in the plan,
or city staff.
or some recommendation of it.
Yeah, we can work with them after the
Right.
fact.
But we can send it to council if there's something they wanna proceed or find,
Yeah.
Exactly, and at that point in time, okay, staff, sit down, review it,
Okay,
the
well, let's do it
entertainment, and
that
then
way.
we can
Some
go ahead.
clarification.
So, just
One
to make
suggestion
sure.
would be to approve, to start talking to the departments that need to be talked to, because everything has to be put in a draft resolution. So go to council if they, if the people who are working on this have done their job, they're meeting, there's a council member at the table right now, they start to talk to the council people about what is happening with this program, and go to council with a draft resolution that they can look at.
But to clarify also, it was the terms versus, it was talked about in the NEZ. So are we only talking about NEZ
No,
or TERS?
we're talking about.
We're
the
talking about the
center city.
NEZ, the TERS would have to partner with the city to meet that gap, but we are not making any motions pertaining to the TERS. So the way San Antonio did is, they had an agreement with each other, their TERS and the city of San Antonio. So they just came in to provide the difference in funding.
And the changes were the 15 years and what else? And
That's not what, this is my suggestion.
And the funding for the loans.
the loans.
But this would be, this is targeting, this is all residential, so that being, if someone wants to add, they have a property, they want to add 4 or 2 stories, and it doesn't meet this, what was the minimum investment, 300 and, this would,
280.
this would get approved, because they are increasing the density and they're hitting those units. So they would be able to get the funds required. So the idea is activating every single square inch we have of the inner city to
Because
start.
currently, the NEZ doesn't give a loan, it just, the owner has to provide that.
Abatements and waivers.
Right.
Yes,
So
this would be,
Mhm.
Just trying to get it clear.
yes.
Okay, so then we got a motion, we got the approval of that motion.
I mean, I would just like for it to be clear as far as, as it's listed here, because this is what you're 1%, the inner city housing incentive policy.
Okay,
And that's
so
what you
do we amend the
handled it
motion?
in that way.
Yeah, so we're gonna amend the motion to say the City of Laredo inner city housing incentive policy, amendments to these guidelines to include abatements of up to 15 years on residential. Because we got residential, we got commercial.
Well, I don't think we need to clarify that, I think we just need to talk about package. This is a package in
Okay.
itself.
Residential is only 5 years.
5 years, correct.
Yeah.
Currently.
So
Correct.
just this package here is what we want.
This is the package, that's what.
Unless it's mixed use.
That's what
Okay,
this
that's-
is.
Unless it's mixed use.
That's
Right.
ten.
Unless
Okay.
it's mixed use.
And that's still
Very
motion
good,
at this
because I know
time,
we gotta
correct?
move on to
approve
move.
it as presented.
To approve it as presented so that it can be presented to the council.
Yes.
You're gonna
Yes.
present it like this to council?
In its current state?
Well, I think we need to get
To meet
some
with
of
city
those funding
officials.
sources, because to present it to council, I think we need to know, well, what are gonna be the funding, how much are, they're gonna wanna
They
know.
can't pass anything.
Huh?
No, I understand, so.
What they wanna know is how much it's gonna cost to the city, or what other funding sources, we're gonna have the funding sources for these loans are gonna come from this. So that's what I think we need to clarify.
So,
And where would this program be
Within the
administered from? Would it be administered?
Well, I
It
think-
says in there, the building director.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's how I have it written.
right.
so maybe then the motion should be that the committee recommend this to be discussed with
City staff.
whomever, yeah, city staff, whomever.
For
is
adoption.
needs to-
Yes.
For adoption, then,
So we can,
for possible
let's get it
presentation.
more specific, where we feel more, because if not, we're gonna present something that's got a lot of questions, and it's money.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion is to have this presented to the city for consideration of adoption and to meet
For
with
the
those
city staff and.
staff and
to
to meet
clar-
with also, I guess Julian
To
just
finish
probably
the
more, know
package of the
more
inner city.
about this, so we can, present it and then we can, hopefully go.
Is that clear on the resolution, ma'am? Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, very good. Okay, let's move on, because we got two other ones. Discussion, possible act, well, first of all, you have the minutes before you, so I don't know if y'all want to go through those. Are there any questions on those minutes? Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes?
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Okay, Rodney, second by Mr. Dominguez, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Second item is a discussion, possible action on update of the RFQ regarding the update on land development code.
So this is what Councilman Martinez was discussing.
Right, so we're looking, I know we sort of discussed I guess, who knows about the land development code, the RFQs regarding that?
One question that was brought to my attention in reference to this, I understand that Frank's Architects is involved with this item, so I don't know if Julian, do you have anything? Would there be, I think, a conflict, do you need to excuse yourself for this particular one?
Oh,
Because,
well then, yes, I'll
because,
recuse myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about-
But I brought about the building and planning so that they can tell you what we're doing and what stage that particular process.
And I'm sorry, we're
That's a
running
week.
short of time, so
But
we're
if
trying.
they want,
I think that would be the most appropriate thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Just let me know. I'll come back. Is there anything else on the?
Yes, there's one more.
Okay.
There's one
If you'd like,
more.
I can-
I'll just wait.
Okay.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
The RFQ was issued, it was issued, I think, December 20th. We had one submittal in response to the RFQ. It was submittal from Able City. We've currently reviewed it. This item will be going to City Council on
So let
the,
me just back back. Is this, they would have revamped all the land development code? I mean, what is the?
I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. The request for qualifications requested professional services for the complete update of the land development code as well as assistance with.
With the ICC, with the building codes also.
Okay.
So currently, they don't see eye to eye on several things, so what we want to do is get the land development, make it clear, because when they really did the land development code, the ICC wasn't even,
Okay.
it wasn't even there. So they want to make sure that they.
Is there, so then, they're gonna come up with proposals on how to amend all this, so right now there's only one.
Yeah, the intention is to make sure that our land development code concurs with our comprehensive plan, with our building code, our fire code.
So I guess for us, it's sort of ones that we'd like to be, hopefully be part of that process and see how we can help.
Yeah.
is there a motion for us to be made on this?
No, I just think, I mean, right now it's
I think it's
very
just-
preliminary,
yeah.
so we'll
And just in case, on the financial component, because I know usually that's discussed a lot here, is when it comes for like permit fees, for example, the permit fees, there's a code that kind of dictates what it is. It's not something that like, oh, we specifically make for the permit fees. And so one of the things is updating the permit fees to what's fair to what's being with the actual code. And so that's just one item that you might see in there that changed.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, very good. I guess
Yeah,
can you call Julian in? I
Just to
think
finish
we-
up, the item is going to City Council for authorization to select and negotiate.
Okay,
For that one.
very good. Next item is the discussion and possible action on current mobility solutions for the inner city. Julian, we're talking about the third one, and I think Councilwoman Nelly Vilma also looked at, you go to other cities, they got these mopeds and they got, transportation within the inner city. And we just wanted to look into some of those solutions, maybe have much better transportation within the inner city.
I was under the impression that traffic was in conversation with Lime.
And I heard that it's already been finished, so,
Oh, really?
yeah, well, the ordinance has been written.
I
Also,
wasn't-
one of the things I want to point out on that
Go
is that
find those scooters and all that.
we're, currently the city of Laredo is doing a lot of the streets and the
I'm sorry?
infrastructure, and so we want to make sure that it's handicap, it's safe, because some of these sidewalks are not safe. You put somebody in a scooter or something trying to get out of a thing. So since we're still working on the bottom, there's certain things on the bottom so that they can fix the
Okay.
sidewalks and all that.
Wait, doing in Austin?
There is already a process, it's already
What are they doing in Austin? I'm just curious.
They just did it. Wait, so what are
Did
you
they
trying to
change,
fix?
did they change the ordinances and?
So right now, they're redoing the water and sewer, right downtown they're redoing it.
So we're holding up an entire ordinance because there's just a current street project? Is that what I'm
Well,
understanding?
no, what I'm saying is, if let's all go back to cost. If you're gonna redo the sidewalk, then you come back and break all the street, it doesn't make sense for us to spend money making it nice, you know, and in other words, you're putting the frosting.
Yeah, no, I guess this one is sort of like those mopeds?
If there is no sidewalk, they're allowed to be on the road. That's the way I read the ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, I thought here there was gonna be more discussion on the board, and maybe it was misunderstanding. If not, I would have invited traffic, because they're the ones that really took the initiative on this one.
Well, what we can do, we can table it for next.
And I'll invite traffic, because they're the ones that are really working on the
Okay,
ordinance.
well, let's just table it for next month. Very good. Is there
Did you want
anything?
to vote to table?
Yeah, we're gonna just, table it for next month, this issue.
I'm saying, do you want to make a motion to table, or do you
Yeah,
just
is there
want
a
to not take?
motion? Motion to Arturo. Think all those in favor? Motion passes. Very good. Is there anything else anybody wants to bring up?
That's, I'm curious about, if we're gonna try to sit here and grow downtown, which is, I think would be fantastic, and what are we doing about parking?
There is a current parking study for the downtown. I don't know where we're at on that being
And what I'm referring to is that, okay, people wanna be able to drive to town, park it, and go where they want. I mean, I'm not taking on anybody, but.
You want me to put that as an item for the
Yeah,
next
maybe we
meeting?
can put it,
and
yeah, let's do it for the item. We're running out of time.
Update on
Why
sparking
don't they add to
study.
their deal, what, we have all
And
this.
any information you can gather that they.
Let's bring that up for the next meeting, because we ran out of time, and I know people
Okay.
need to get back to
Well,
their
plus it's
jobs.
not on the agenda, so I'd rather be in the agenda. We can-
Very good. With
But
that,
if you can get the
do
traffic.
I hear a motion for adjournment of the meeting?
The parking.
Rodney?
To-
All in favor, aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Councilman, good to see you.
Thank you guys for inviting me. Yes, thanks for lunch too.
Yeah.
I say something I regret.
Julian, can you email me the presentation, please?
I,
I don't care, I'll get it from you.